What are you doing? Boat racing?
Yeah, so we race little power boats.
So what's that about? Are you on your own on that boat, or is that like a team thing, or what? I
Two
mean,
two man team.
and what? So obviously someone's steering. What's the other guy doing?
So the person at the back obviously is doing the power and a little bit of the steering, but then the person at the front, the co-pilot. I don't know if you've ever seen sidecar motorbike and sidecar racing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like one person like swings around, don't they, to sort of get some help with the
Yeah, to get the turn, and that's basically that, but on the water.
amazing.
But it's mayhem. It is mayhem. I broke my rib last time. It's still not fixed because it's just the waves chuck you everywhere. You bounce out. You're upside down. It's fun. But we're the world champion. So there's a world champion, and he's racing in these races too. So it's everyone from the basic novice to the world champion of the sport.
And
so there's no messing.
You smashing your bit to pieces.
Yeah, it's just there's no whole barbs in the races. It's quite intense.
I really love stuff like that, even though I've got no sort of appetite or knack for it at all.
Yeah, it lets you know you're alive.
Indeed. My guest today is Paul Colling from Help for Heroes. Now, I've just listened back to this episode, and one thing that comes across is it takes us quite a long time to get to Paul's Wonders of the World because his backstory is truly remarkable, inspirational, humbling, at times quite deep. This episode, it's a powerful listen. Obviously, after you've listened to this episode, I hope you check out the Help for Heroes website. If you're going through tough times yourself, I hope it'll encourage you to reach out to somebody. So, yeah, the only other thing I want to say is a thank you to Paul for sharing so much of himself with us, and I'm sure that's something you'll appreciate as you listen to this episode. Like I said, for people that aren't familiar with your story, Paul, your Wonders of the World today are all things that you presumably are grateful for because they've played a role in what you might class as your recovery from a low point that you experienced in your life after an incident that we'll explain in a bit more detail. But I feel like to give people the context to understand that journey that you went on and that recovery that you needed, you need to go right back to the start of your story, which is to you as a child with what was effectively a dream, which was to become a full-time soldier. Can you remember when that dream started to be part of your life and what you wanted to do?
Yeah. And it's very random, really. So my dad was in the military. My brother joined the military just after me. He's like a year and a half older than me, so he joined. He'd gone through his training, and I'd been in cadets when I was younger. But I was just leaving school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't even thought about college. I hadn't thought about anything really. I was young, and I guess some people have got their life ambitions. People have got what they want to do and everything like that. And the military had always been there in my life because it's part of my dad's life and part of my brother's life. But it actually, what made if you like crossed the T's and dotted the I's was I had an argument with my mum.
Right.
And she didn't like the fact that my brother was in, and my brother was about to go to Iraq. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll annoy you, and I'll go and sign up to join the army. And I think that you take that little argument away from just like as a child, like obviously trying to, I'll annoy you by doing this. I'll get you back. You take that away from me, I probably still would have ended up in the military because there's nothing else I would have done with my dad being in and my brother and everyone around me. It was just the kind of. But I think that day was the day that little argument was the one that sent me to the career office that day.
Yeah, well, I'm actually really glad you've said that, Paul, because one of the reasons I've sort of wanted to talk to somebody from Help for the Heroes and sort of always been fascinated by people who sign up for the military is because I had a reasonably similar conversation with my dad. Now, my dad's, for want of a better word, is basically a hippie, and I remember saying to him once, if I could do one thing that would really annoy you, what would it be? And he said, join the military. Now, I wasn't willing to take my commitment to rebellion quite that far, but since then, I suppose I've always had a fascination with people who make that choice, because it's not, obviously in some ways it is just like any other decision in terms of a job or what you're going to do, but equally it's quite unique, isn't it, to say I'm going to go somewhere where people are going to be trying to kill me, and and that sounds a bit blunt, but that is basically what you're choosing, isn't it? Did it feel like that at the time, or do you think, were you naive, or was there something, is there something in your blood? How would you describe coming to that decision? And
I think it was a bit, definitely a bit of naivety, because most of the things I look back on my life and what I've done. Now I'm only 36, but obviously I carry quite a few injuries, and I'm quite cautious about what I do. And I think it's a bit like the story of the child and the adult when they go to a fairground, and as a child they'll try to get on any ride doing anything, and they've got show no fear. But as you get older, you're less likely to go on them rides. And I look back on my life now, and I think a lot of things I do or did, if I had that chance again, I'd be like, no chance, no way. And so I think it was a lot of naivety, because I didn't know what was around the corner. And when I got to around that corner, it was still, I think, a bit of naivety to not naive. I don't think I understood exactly what I was getting myself in for. And even when I was in some of the situations I was in, I still don't. I think I fully understood them till afterwards.
Mm-hmm. But how old were you the first time you went overseas?
So just after my 18th birthday, I nearly missed Iraq because I was too young, because you've got to be 18 to go to war. So when my brother got back, I went. My dad was there too. So all three of us were there, actually. And I just made it because of my age. I
don't know if you hear this, but for those of us who weren't going to Iraq when we were 18, that's just mind-boggling. When I think back to what I was doing at 18, I was absolutely clueless. The idea that I would be, in situations like you must have been in a far part of the world, I find that, it's humbling and also just almost surreal. When you look back at that now, or if you could talk to that 18-year-old Paul, would you be saying to him, what are you doing? This is madness, or how do you feel about that now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely, like, when I look at it, and then I do think about it sometimes, and I think it just shows how balls to the wall I think the UK is as a country. I mean, some of the things we were doing with the equipment we probably never had, and it was just nuts. And it's just silly things like when you'd finished doing whatever you're doing and you fancied a quick sunbathe, jumping on the top of Saddam's palace, on top of the roof, just watching, trying to keep low so no one takes any pot shots at you from across the river, just to get a sunbathe.
So
like, you wouldn't do that, would you? It's just, like, I'm looking back now, would I jump on the roof and try and just not be seen so people don't have pot shots, just to have 10 minutes in the sun?
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't.
It's absolutely bananas, isn't it? So then you obviously spend a bit of time serving in the military, and then that is brought to an end in phases, if I understand this right, by an initial injury that then and ultimately ends up with you having to leave. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I had an injury in 2003 that I was a physical trainer as well. I had quite a few roles, but one of them was a physical trainer.
So in 03, how old were you then, sorry?
Just over 18, just gone 18.
Oh, so your first injury was quite quick, quite soon.
Yeah, it was pretty much straight away.
Wow.
I ruptured all my ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. Didn't realise I did that much damage. I was taking so we had all the kit on. We carry all the Bergen, and it's got like 25 plus kilograms in it, plus your weapon, your helmet, your water, and everything else. And we were on a loaded march, or we were off running with all the kit on. And I think it was 40 something miles we were doing for a trophy called Lanyard Trophy. And obviously I went over on it and I ruptured everything. Didn't realise I ruptured it, carried on. And then I did my full career on it also. Obviously hurting. Throughout the career, there was physio, there was podiatrists. There was a lot going on in between as it got rough, and because it used to just go black in times as well and blue and just swell. And it was a bit of a nightmare all the way through the career. But I got on with it to the point where I was on my last job teaching recruits to be soldiers. and I was taking them through, teaching them how to do like attacks in the field, how to take positions and stuff. So one of them, what we used to do, we used to chuck a grenade in, and we, as a section commander, as a person in control, we'd kill ourselves. Obviously, it's all scenario based. It's not obviously like real, but we'd kill ourselves off. So then we could see what leaders had shown themselves because they all they knew is to follow that through a whole training to do what we say, to follow our lead. And so what we did, we kill yourself off to see what leaders you've got in the group and see who steps up really. And when I went to get back up, I couldn't walk. So they scanned my leg and there was like loads of fractures in there, only hairline fractures, but when they could see the colour of the bone where it had been breaking over the years and just healing and breaking and healing, and it was a complete mess.
And so at that point, they turn to you and say, I think one of the words you've used before is that they say you're broken, and that you basically, how does that conversation happen where they talk to you about the fact that you're basically going to have to leave, or there's no sort of nice way of wording that, is there? What does that sound like? Well,
it didn't go straight, because the first I did have nearly 2 years of trying to get. So I had a couple of operations from the first time when I realised how bad it was. There was a couple of operations and there was quite a lot of rehab at Headley Court, and there was a big effort from the military to try and get me back in the game and myself. And I probably my own, just because of probably the type of person I am and my attitude, I'm a bit stubborn. So when the physio was telling me to tell me if it hurts, I probably wasn't letting them know that it was giving me aggravation. I was just pushing on and fighting through it because I just wanted to get going again. And I think I probably, after a year of surgery and rehab, when they scanned it at the end of that year, it was back to where it was at the start again. It was probably because of me pushing it too hard without explaining how it was actually feeling, because I didn't want to say it was hurting, sort of thing. But it was after that, and anyway, so it just wasn't like a cutthroat. There was like 2 years. They did really try to get me back in the game. It wasn't just but once it got to the final stage, it was sat in a doctor's room, and he said to me, Paul, by this point I'd done 16 years, and I was just planning on going to teach at Sandhurst. I wanted to go and do all the stuff to teach here, which is one of the best places, one of the best jobs to go in, really. What you work for. My career was just starting, really. I worked quite hard to get to where I was at, and it was just taking off where I wanted it to go. No matter what career you do, you've got to put all that groundwork in, and once you finally put the groundwork in, it takes a lot of time to get to where you actually want to be. And then the doctor said, you're gonna, it's not official yet, but your career's over, and you're gonna need to start thinking about what you want to do when you leave. And then I was like, well, I don't want to do anything when I leave. I don't want to. This is me. This is what I left school and I've been here. This is me. This is who I am. And then the doctor tried to, and then we had a few chats, and I was like, nah, it's not happening. I'll be all right. I was a bit naive again. I was like, nah, I'll be fine. You're saying that, but the doctor I was dealing with wasn't a soldier. And that was in particular, they were right, but in my head, I was like, nah, you're not a soldier. Soldierman, I can dig through this. I've got through worse. I'll be all right. And then a few more appointments later, and then they referred me to DCMH, which is a mental health clinic sort of thing. And they tried to, they spent a bit of time get me ready to understand that my career was over before I actually physically got told. So there was a lot of, the army did do a bit of prep to try and soften the blow, if you like. But I was just, I was like, yeah, whatever, it's fine, I'll be all right, I'll be cool. I've got this far, I'll be fine. And then they sit you down in a room, and it's called a final med board, so you build up to it, and like it reality is it shouldn't be a shock because there's so much build up to it, and you know the process. It's all written down. It's a full-on document how it all unfolds, and it's got time scales and everything. So in hindsight, if you're not trapped in that, and we've got tunnel vision on, you'd actually understand it all and you'd get it, and there's no other option in the end. But because you've got tunnel vision on, you're stuck in it. You don't really see it unfolding. You don't really see the stages or the steps. And when you get to your final med board, you still believe that things are going to be all right. But then there's like 3 nurses or 3 doctors or whatever, what different people in the military high up in the medical side. and they go over your situation, your scenario, and then they decide there in front of you there what your situation was. And mine was, yeah, you're unfit for military service. And then when you hear somebody say you're unfit for military service, that's like a proper kick in the teeth that I'm unfit to be in the military. I'm like, well, that's my life. And that's when everything just turned upside down, I think. And it was like, everything just felt empty. You just felt like almost like, if you can imagine I don't know, you took your feet off. And this sounds really random, but then if you took your feet off, obviously all your blood all your insides would just come out your feet. And then slowly everything would just start coming out of you. Or if you had a hole in the tank, the fuel it'll just start coming out, and eventually it's empty. And that's what I could feel it in that room. I could just feel the presence of who I was, just emptying out, like the tank just emptying, and me just being a hollow person and not having just everything I stood for and everything I believed in how, my appearance, my bearing, my standards, everything I lived by and lived off, and everything I believed in just floated away. But I had an officer who was looking after me. You get like an officer when you get to that stage who looks after you to make sure you're all right. And I think she could see that obviously the shock and they'd finally sunk in. Everyone was trying to get for it to sink in. It sunk in. So they took me away to the side and we had a chat, and then it still didn't really sink in. And I realized it was over, but it didn't really, really sink in how bad I was and how bad I was going to struggle till after I was out, I think. And that's when it hit me.
So what's the long-term impact of your injuries? Obviously, it makes sense why you would have been classed as unfit for military service. What impact does your injuries have on your day-to-day life now?
So I haven't got an ankle. It's all bone and metal.
Right.
And it's got a lifespan, so eventually it'll stop doing what it does. Causes a lot of damage. I'm in permanent pain, so just getting to sleep, things like that, it's a bit of a struggle. Mm-hmm. Even walking from A to B is a struggle. I'm also just hobble along really. It also, I don't really put myself out there as much as I used to. Like, I won't go socializing. I won't go. But also that's part of. I've got a minor brain injury as well, because I ended up in. It's a long story, but I suffered a head injury, so I don't like being, because I've got this minor brain injury. So my cognitions work a little bit slower, and because I'm not able on my feet, and I'm very unstable on my feet, and I should be using walking sticks. That's what the specialist told me, but I refuse to. I'm a 36-year-old. I'm not using a walking stick. But so because of that, I end up just hobbling everywhere I go and being unstable and struggling to get downstairs, getting upstairs, long journeys, sitting down. Everything's a struggle, really. Life's a struggle.
When you talk about the loss that you suffered and the adjustment that you had to make, one of the things that comes across is that a big part of it, if not the biggest part of it, is about your identity and how much, being a soldier is who you are. And so it's not just somebody saying, oh, you can't do this job anymore. It's somebody saying you're not this person anymore. We'll come on to your recovery later on, but is that something that you feel like you have made that adjustment now? Or do you still feel like, Paul the ex-soldier, or do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's definitely still, I really struggled with it to the point of trying to commit suicide a few times because I couldn't deal with it. And then I know I'm going to go on a recovery, but I went on a coaching course to become a life coach, to learn. I didn't do it because I wanted it as a career. I didn't do it because I want to help others. I did it so I could try and understand myself. And then it was a nightmare. And then I found the turning point where it let me keep my identity, almost create a new one, but it's for the same reason, same meaning. And it's probably for even more powerful reasons, really. I like to think it is in my head. It might not be, but in my head, it feels the identities. What I do now aligns with what I did do, and it's all the same, like values and standard. The values are there. It's meaningful. It's powerful stuff, or it feels like it is. So I've never let go of it. I've found a way to keep hold of it, if you like, and transfer it a little bit.
Yeah, that definitely comes across in interviews that I've seen with you, and I'm sure will come across later, is that you've found a new meaning and purpose that is equal to what you had in the army. I suppose, and I'm guessing this is something that all veterans or ex-army suffer from to some extent, is that identity of being a soldier. And I'm guessing because that's quite a uniquely powerful role to have, it must be quite must be common that people find that difficult to get over that. I'm guessing the people that you work with now through Help for Heroes and spend time.
Yeah, massively. And not even Help for Heroes. I mean, the amount of people that get in touch with me now because of the stuff I do, individually telling me where they're struggling, how they're struggling, and just how they miss it, and how just it's more. I think it's more common than even most soldiers think. I think most people think it's just them, but actually, I couldn't put a figure on it, but I reckon it's probably in the 70%. Well, probably even over that. I'm just being cautious with saying 70%, but for most people, it's the pride, the passion, everything that comes with being a soldier, being a British soldier, and then everybody. Most people miss it, and most people end up struggling at some point in their life. And it might be 2 years of being out, it might be 10 years, 20 years of being out, it might be when they lose the love partner, and it all comes to it. But most people I know, really do miss it. No one's alone.
I'd imagine it's one of those things where, me and you could talk about it for another 3 hours, but you'd probably never be able to really get me to understand what that feeling is like. Whereas I'm guessing when you meet somebody who used to be a soldier and they say, I miss it, it's like you instantly understand exactly where they're coming from. Is that fair?
It's almost like losing a loved one. It's that raw.
That sort of level.
Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that raw for everybody, but the people who get in and believe it and actually get behind it, and actually, it's hard to put into words. I'm trying to explain it, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, definitely. So that's sort of you at your low point there, and you mentioned getting to the point where you was sort of suicide was even a possibility, and you're in that sort of a lower place. We're gonna start talking about your wonders of the world now, which have all played a little part in getting you out of there. How long would you say you were in that lower place, Paul? Like when did you start to feel like you were turning a corner?
For the good, or for the turn a corner for the good?
Oh, okay. So let's go back.
When do you mean by?
Well, no, yeah. I was meaning for the good, but let's go back a step. So you walk out of that room having been told you're unfit for military service. Is it literally then you're straight into the depths of despair, or actually does it take you a while to get that low? Does that make sense?
I think it took me about half a year. It took me.
Oh, what, just to get so for the first half?
It's the very low, yeah.
Really? Really?
I think it was generally probably, if you ask people around me, my personality, my attitude, even the drinking, probably was on a general decrease. But then for me to notice, it took about half a year to the point where it was affecting everybody around me,
right?
And not in the best way. And people were really, really worried. The fact that I wasn't even allowed to be left in my room with my tablets, or my medication, my painkillers.
So even though you'd had years of sort of build up, it's still a period of either you being in some sort of sense in denial, or not really fully getting your head around it, I suppose. And then I suppose to some extent, when you get your head around it, that's when you hit that rock bottom, isn't it? In this sort of weird way.
Yeah, and that sudden realization of, oh damn. Yeah. I was going to use another word there, but then I remember what we're doing.
Yeah. Sometimes damn doesn't really do it justice, does it?
Yeah, there's a lot. The word I was going to use is a lot stronger than that, but it was. Yeah. When it just like the cloud comes over, and you're like, oh my god, is this how did I get in this situation? How's my life got this bad that I'm doing this and I'm reacting like this, and how am I upsetting everybody around me? And how do I even get out of it? That was the worst part. And then obviously luckily I had Help for Heroes that were there to support me, and my family, of course.
Yeah. So let's talk about those green shoots that start to come. Then you start to think, actually I can rebuild a new life here, and I can start to turn a page. Can you pinpoint the first one of those, the first sort of note for optimism for you, or the first thing that started to make you think, actually, hang on a second, I'm going to get back on the horse here, as it were?
Yeah, it was It was a Health Heroes. I guess you class it as a career course because it's something people do for a career, and a lot of people do it. And I asked if I could go on that, not because I want to be a life coach or a work coach, but I feel like it's something I need to do. And so they said yes, so they put me on it. And on that course, the first day, everybody was going through that. It's almost I watched everybody else go through the process of. It was a really powerful course actually, because most people, I say most people, I shouldn't say it like that, but you can imagine a normal working environment, say like an office job 9 till 5, and the sort of work coaching that goes on there could be, I don't know, I don't know what
a lot
it'd be.
Of management speak and sort of
a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then this coaching course was just full of injured, wounded, and sick, broken soldiers. So when people were admitting, like when they're saying, "What do you want to get from this?" There was real, meaningful, powerful stuff that people were letting go of.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took me on the second day. It sort of sunk in what the course was about and what everybody was doing. I had a bit of a mental breakdown. We'd already lost 3 people on the course because it was a real powerful course because of the intensity of what people were. I don't think it was meant to. I don't know if it was meant to be as. I don't think we were. I don't even know if it was meant to go the way it went, but it went the way it went, and everybody really invested, and really everyone put 110% into this course. And then I just broke down and I had to leave the class, and then I went outside. I remember crying my eyes out on the grass, and then one of the guys who run it came and sat with me for a bit, and he said, "Are you all right? Just take a breath. You're all right." And he sat with me for a bit and let me go again and let me be for a bit. And then at that point, I rang my mum actually and apologised for being the way I was over a long period of time. And I said, "I'm going to change." And I was like, "I don't know how I'm going to change, but I'm going to change." And then I finished the rest of the course. And then I went home and told my now wife that I'm going to change. And I want to change. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to change. And then that's where I got determined to change. And I think that's the very first time in the whole time in my life since joining the military I ever stopped drinking. Was there and then. And I don't drink now, because if I drink, it's like if I had a drink, I'd be my barriers would fall down. I'm very, very much living on coping mechanisms. But if I say you have a drink, then coping mechanisms seem to drift away, and then you end up doing silly things again, and you're almost back to where you start. So I'll drink once a year at Army Navy just to let my hair down, let it all out. I go away with a load of about 30 squaddies who I know, and we just all go absolutely pull the pin. We all go mental over 2 days, and we go back to our normal lives, and we just carry on again.
Mm-hmm. So when you described that Help for Heroes, like a training course that you were doing, do you think that you were, something was already turning inside you, and that's why you agreed for the course, and actually you were already on that path and would have just, maybe that just accelerated, you making those decisions? Or do you think there was something quite unique about that experience, and had you not, let's say on the day of the course, you'd not made it, whatever, I don't know, you got caught in traffic or whatever. Do you think if you missed that, you could have carried on the way you were going? Does that make sense? Do you feel like that?
No, I don't think it would have done. I think you're probably on something that I probably was ready to. I was ready for change, and I was ready to try and step forward. But that course was just so powerful, and I still use them tools today, and I use it especially when things. When you wake up and you're in agony before you've even got out of bed, and you go to work and you're in agony, and then you get to bed and you're in agony. You've got to be able to look at things differently. And that course taught me how to look at things differently. And sometimes I go back into my soldier mentality and I just carry on and crack on. But then also I can almost jump out of personality and use the tools I learned on that coaching course to try and steer myself back on track, and just to do things, to set things, to almost spot things. I can spot things that my mood and how I'm being, and I can almost coach myself back into, actually, yeah, you might be feeling like that, but however, you can't let it go on this route it's going on. So I need to, even if I am feeling crap or shit, I need to actually, I need to step up and break that chain before it gets to. I understand it more because of that course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd have understood it.
Yeah, you've alluded there to some of the things that Help for Heroes has done for you, but you've also now in the wonderful position of contributing back, haven't you? So it's like a very much revolving door for you in terms of what you put into it and what you get out of it. Which finally takes us on to your first wonder of the world, which is a memory that you've got from Help the Heroes. So tell us about that, Paul.
Yeah, so I was obviously I had a lot of time from leaving the military to being fit. So I think I've had 8 operations so far, and after each one, you can't. Once you're getting medically discharged, you can't work in the military. But you're not out, so you just got a lot of time at home doing absolutely nothing, and your brain just melting away because you can't do anything. You got nothing to do. So I needed to do something, and Help Heroes. We're in partnership with the Prince's Trust, and the Prince's Trust obviously help vulnerable adults who are struggling in life. So Help Heroes said, would you be interested in doing this? Because I knew I was an instructor in Purbright. I used to instruct the recruits, and it works well for the Prince's Trust too. So I said, yeah, I'm well up for it. So I went along to a Prince's Trust course in Slough, a Prince's Trust team, in Slough, and I offered my services as part of the Help Heroes, as part of the partnership to come and help out. So I joined the Slough team as one of the instructors delivering their team course, which I think it was 12 weeks long. They did. It was almost like a basic training, and the stay was from day one to being people who were struggling in life, all walks of life, whether it was through drugs, whether it was through from having no family, whether it was through lots and lots of different why vulnerable people struggle, whether it's through the fact that they bounce from care to care to care to care, and they've got they had no grasp on life. A lot of them didn't have a grasp on life themselves, and it was like I was thinking, if I was like that at 36, God knows what it's like for you at 16 in my head. So that I thought, I've got to do something. I've got to give it. Yeah, it's the least I can try and do. So then I was delivering, and there was this one guy, and he just, there was something about him, and he used to wear these headphones, a bit like what I've got now, and it'd have heavy metal bouncing through, like you could hear the heavy metal from halfway across the other side of the road. He wouldn't look at anybody in the eye. He wouldn't talk to anybody, and he was a lost soul. He was really, a 16-year-old, he was lost. And then as you got to find out, and he'd been there, he'd lost his mother, he'd lost his father, not very nicely either. He'd been put in care, he'd gone through the mill at 16, and he'd just literally switched off from the world, I think, and he just lost all, I lost a lot of he lost all his communication skills. He had no interest in he just really, really, really struggled. And there was learning difficulties here too. There was other things as well. But when he came to us, he couldn't look people in the face, and he couldn't hold a conversation. And now I worked with him for 12 weeks, and I give this guy a lot of my time because he needed it. So like most courses or most things you run, 80% of them will understand it. They'll get themselves. We hear a bit of guidance here and a bit of guidance there, but they end up getting themselves. They don't need a lot of one-on-one major tuition, and then there's the odd one or two that do. And this is one that need a lot of attention. So we said, as a team, like, if I put my focus trying to develop this young man, I'll still get involved with anything else, but I'll almost partner up with him, so he's got somebody to turn to, and just a bit of a rock to help him through. So we did that, and we went through lots of barriers together. From started off where we just getting to know each other. Then we went on like an adventure training week where they've got to put themselves through climbing, lots of different physical activities, kayaking, that sort of stuff. And he embraced them all. And as these weeks were going on, he'd still having music in the morning, but as the day went on, he'd start taking the headphones off or turning it down. And he's starting to make eye contact with people in the group now who he'd learned to trust. And as he came running in on the morning in the hut, he'd come running up to you and have a conversation with you. And you could see it slowly changing. And you could almost see like a person turning back on. And then as it coming to an end, it got to, you do like a mini end of course presentation, if you like, to your families, loved ones, people who've been invited, people who've been on this journey. And bear in mind, this guy couldn't look at anybody in the eye at day one. He just looked at the ground with his heavy metal on. And it took God knows how long. And he'd gone through loads of, I've missed out so many hurdles that this guy overcome, or hurdles he'd overcome.
Yeah.
To the end, we sat there and they were going to do presentations. And the plan was that normally people come up, they've got their own little bit, they've planned it, they've got it written down, or however they're going to do it. And they said a little bit and take turns, a bit like a player. That's where it evolves. Like, but this guy, he obviously he couldn't stand in front of people. So I planned it out with him. I said, what I'll do, I'll stand next to you. I'll tell you a story, and you can just nod and shake your head. And he's like, I can do that. I said, you can do it. I know you can do it. And we had a bit of a psych out session with each other, and he's going, hey, let's do this. So we did it. And as I started doing talking the first bit out, he looked at me and he started talking back to me about it. And he started. He was looking me direct in the eye, and I was looking him direct in the eye. So it was like nobody else was in the room, and he was talking to me about. And it started evolving from how it felt. He started putting his input into it rather than just him nodding his head. And I started getting more quiet. And he started turning around and looking at everybody in the eye too. So he'd gone from not being able to talk to absolutely anybody in 12 weeks, and not even his foster parents, or whatever you want to call them, to being able to stand there in front of 30 odd people, looking him at the eye, telling his story of how the 12 weeks had changed his life. And his foster parents were breaking down in tears because they couldn't believe it. And it was just amazing. It was like, it was incredible to think, if a 16-year-old can do that, go through that, and a 16-year-old can have the courage to do what he'd done. And I can't do it just in words, how many barriers and how many things he broke down to do what he was able to do. It just made me think, you know what, I need to man up a bit, and I need to, people don't like that word anymore, but I need to, you know, if he can do that, I can crack on as well. I learned a lot from him. He inspired me a lot in a way. And he'll never know. You will never know.
Yeah, it's such a powerful story, Paul. It's and obviously, I can only begin to imagine the significance of that for him in his life, but also for you in your own life. That must have been, a really powerful experience when you talk about being in a place where you were broken, or feeling like, you were surplus to requirements, or couldn't do what you felt like you were supposed to be doing in life. You must have come away from that. I know people who help other people are generally very humble and sort of belittle their own role in doing that. But you must have come away from that feeling like, wow, I've actually there's still so much more I can do to contribute here. And to get a glimpse of yourself, achieving that and making a difference for someone must have been remarkably positive in your own journey, surely.
I think the way he handled it was massively positive on me. I mean, he taught me a lot of things, and there's a lot of things I took from him just by how he did it, and how it was just remarkable to watch. And it was very special to watch. Actually, I feel very privileged to be able to be part of it. But he did most of the work. So he's the one who, like, for me, it was easy for me, because I say it was easy. I just had to talk to him. I just had to be there to support him, which for me, it wasn't hard to do. He took all the hard steps. I didn't take any hard steps on them 12 weeks. I wasn't the knight in shining armor. He just had faith and belief in me, and I was just honest and open with him. And that's all I did. I didn't do nothing special. He did. So I felt proud in him. The pride I had was for him and everything he did. But it did light a fire in me at the same time, going, do you know what? The world, it can be a shit place, and it's a shit place for these 16-year-olds. And do you know what? I need to stop feeling sorry for myself, and I need to pull myself around, and I need to give myself a slap in the face and crack on with my life. And actually, I wasn't 36 then, because I'm 36 now, but whatever age I was, actually, I need to get on with things, and actually, I need to just, get a grip a bit.
So I feel like I tried to encourage you to take a tiny bit of credit for that, but when you completely weren't having any of it. But
it wasn't me. If it was me, I wouldn't mind saying, but I was just there for him. I didn't do anything else but be there.
Either way, it's an inspirational story anyway. So from your work with Help the Heroes, and obviously, you've talked about the significance of them for your life. I think your second wonder is your possession, which is your PlayStation, which is another big part of what's seen you through those times. And I have to say, on this one, I'm really looking forward to hearing you talk about this, because I'm somebody like I've had little periods of playing a bit on a computer, but I find that the world of online gaming is completely alien to me. And in my experience, most people who talk about that, they're either saying, "Oh, it's really bad. You shouldn't be spending that much time playing or playing online. All these kids doing this, blah, blah, blah." Or they're at best people who are saying, "Oh, it's not that bad." But in your case, PlayStation and gaming is actually a really significant and positive part of your life, isn't it? So explain to somebody like myself who just probably can't even understand what it's like, like I don't even know how online gaming works. Explain to somebody like me how that works and what good it brings to you.
Yeah, so literally, but I've had, how many is it, 8 operations, and because it's my leg, each time I spend like 6 months to a year laid up, not being able to do anything. So it's a lot of time just laid doing nothing. So obviously the PlayStation came in real handy, because you can plug it in, you turn it on, and you can connect to the world. So I also had a minor brain injury that comes into play here. I struggled getting my cognitions. Some of my cognitions don't work as well as they should because of a head injury. So sometimes when I want, my brain's thinking about doing something, getting my mind to say, my mouth to do it or my fingers to do it, this is a different story. Sometimes it takes a lot of focus, and sometimes I just can't do it, or sometimes I hit blank. It's like the wheels turning, but the lights are on, but no one's home sometimes.
Right.
And I end up stuttering a little bit, and it's just waiting for me to get back where I need to be. But so they tried to get me to learn to play the guitar. So a helicopter track in between, like my leg physio and everything else, that there was also timeout, come away, try and learn the guitar to help your brain, your cognitions fire up and teach them again. So doing that, but the reality was all that did was make me smash up guitars around walls because out of frustration.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I rapped on one of my friend's head once. He's still my friend, actually. We still talk, we're good friends.
He's a forgiving lad.
Yeah, he is. And it was over drink as well, so it was one of the things. But that didn't work for me. But then I didn't even realize that actually playing a computer, your brain's got to think about what you're doing, what you're watching, what you're seeing, along with online gaming. For the people who don't understand online gaming, you've got a character with whatever game you choose. It might be racing, so you've got your own little race cars, or it might be a shooting game, so you're on you're all part of a team, and you've all got your man, and you've all got your headphones on like this. This headset's a gaming headset, and you can hear each other, you can talk to each other, and you can plan out what you're going to do, how are you going to do it. And then say, for instance, you're playing a fighting game, and then one of your guys gets into a contact to the right. You almost talk to each other to try and iron out that problem and win whatever game you're playing through communication, teamwork. A lot going on.
It's literally a whole other world, isn't it? Is it as simple as, obviously, well, there's lots of other things about the appeal to it, but is it at a basic level, is it escapism? Is it just getting away from everything?
Yeah, it is. It just, you can chill out. You can really, you can't. I compared it. When you sit and watch your TV, you can sit and watch your TV. And if your mind's full, you sit and watch TV, but the TV becomes white noise because you can't stop thinking about the stuff that's on your mind. Yeah. There's no way to get rid of it. But when you're in a computer game with everybody else chatting away, that stuff has got no way to creep to the front of your mind, because you can't just watch a game in the background, because you've got to be doing things. You've got to be present, and you've got to be there. So it forces you to just leave everything where it is, just to have that healthy moment to refuel, re-engage, and just realign and get yourself ready to go again, and give yourself that energy to be able to just to laugh and just relax without even thinking about it. And also because we've got a lot of veterans that do it now, and a lot of people who struggle, because I found a lot of people struggling through lockdown. I think everybody struggled through lockdown. There's a lot of veterans who I knew were struggling, so I brought them all together, and we all started gaming together. and everybody was just getting a real release from it because they were sat there talking to like-minded people playing game. And eventually, it didn't matter if we were winning or losing the game, but because we were focusing on the game, people were letting out more than they normally let out, and they were feeling good because of it. Because after actually, we just had a really, really heartfelt conversation that we didn't really realize we had.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you just let the load off your chest and you're ready to go again.
Yeah. No, it's genius in that sense, isn't it? Okay, so let's move on to your third wonder then. So this is your place, and we're going outdoors, but just to your local park. Is that right, Paul?
So I live literally on the back of the country park. I live in a little place called Edenbrook, and it's just really peaceful and it's really, really quiet, and it's just nice. And then literally a couple of steps, and I'm on the back of a country park, and it's just. You're at one and it's just peaceful. I take my little dog with me, and that's where you just get your thought, your bear, and all these little ideas there, and all these little things I come up with, and all these little creations all come from just being out there walking my dog, putting the world behind, and just putting things into keeping grounded. I think it keeps me grounded because it makes me think, well, actually, it's something that could be a big deal. Actually, being on the country park, it just lets me. Actually, it's not a big deal. And actually, when I sit there and think, if I take half an hour to hobble around with my dog, because my dog hobbles too. We both got a limp, and it's the same leg as well, actually. But by the time we got round the end of the little walk, you've thought about what's on your mind. You've thought about actually some places where I've been and where I've got to, and you can put things in perspective. Just being listening, just the quiet, just the peaceful, just being away from everything, the fresh air, it just grounds me, and it just I always feel ready. I've got another. If I go on a walk and I could be in neutral, and I could be struggling getting the first gear. By the time I've finished the walk, I'm ready to go. I'm in third.
Nice. It makes me think of listening to you talk. Makes me think of the feeling that I always get if I go to the coast and I look at the sea, and it just looks so vast, and it always makes me feel like insignificant, but in the best possible way. It makes me feel like I'm actually pretty trivial, and so are all my little worries in the grand scheme of things.
What's the point in worrying about them? Yeah, and you just take it. You're just in that moment. That's literally that's my country part. That what you just described there.
One of the things that I did want to talk to you about, and you tell me if I'm wrong here. My perception of the military would be that you have to, as a necessary evil to go and do the things that you need to do. You have to have that sort of stubborn, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay, we're going to go through this sort of mindset, which is very strong in a certain way, because if you're in a dicey situation, you don't really need the person next to you to turn to you and say, I want to talk about my feelings right now, do you? You need them to be on point and getting on with it. But then presumably when you come out of the military, or for people who've been through experiences like you, that skill set or that mindset that's very helpful in those scenarios, but then presumably is quite an unhelpful mindset when you're confronted with different challenges where you need to be able to talk about your feelings, or you need to be able to, admit weakness and reflect on things. And is that something that you've experienced, or have I got a misconception about what it's like?
No, you're onto something there. You're definitely onto something. I don't know if it's because, and I did it the other day. So I've never in the minute. Obviously, you just don't ring in sick. There's no such thing as a sick day. You don't get sick day. If you go to the doctors, and if you're unwell or something, they'll give you get a little cheer and then you're off. But you can't just pick up the phone and go, I'm not coming in today.
Yeah.
And I was on my way to work. Before I even set off to work, I knew I wasn't well. I knew I was a little, almost like vomiting sort of thing. But I wasn't. I was holding it in, and I was keeping it back in. I thought, I need to get to work, and I need to get my stuff done. I need to get these people, because I'm a trainer. I need to get these guys trained. So I was like, fuck it. Got in my van, and it was a mission. Right, all I've got to do is get from here to my work. That's it. And when I get there, that hurdle's done. And I did that, and I got to work. And I was like, right, I need to get the guy. And I took each stage by stage, and it wasn't an option to ring up and go, I'm not very well. There wasn't an option in my head to do that. I couldn't. It wasn't something my brain could accept, or it wasn't acceptable in my head to ring somebody up, ring my boss and go, I can't come in today, I'm not well. To the point where I had a guy on induction, his first day in our company. I said, 1 minute, went to the toilet, didn't even make it to the toilet. I was sick over both parts of the toilet, absolutely everywhere, to the point where they probably had to close the toilet down for the day. They had to get somebody, the guy who was meant to be training couldn't be trained. And I probably caused more hassle than good than just saying, do you know what, I can't come in today. But to me, that my brain couldn't. I understand it now. It's if you're not very well, you're generally not very well, and you're not good at work. But my brain couldn't comprehend that, and it was just I couldn't say. I just couldn't do it. I was like, you can't do that. It's just and I think actually,
I suppose it's that tunnel vision, isn't it? Like, I would imagine that when you've got a mission, you just have to be very focused on what your objectives are. Whereas and then suddenly you find yourself walking around your country park, it's almost the complete opposite of that, isn't it? It's like a very
real life. Things happen. Yeah. And it's okay.
Yeah,
it's allowed.
Yeah.
You just got to let somebody know.
Yeah, definitely. That's it, and I suppose that's a good message for anybody out there, isn't it? Whether they be somebody who might benefit from Help for Heroes or anyone else.
Reach out. It's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
People get it. People understand.
Yeah, definitely.
Only if everybody knew that people understood.
Yeah, it's having the courage, I suppose, isn't it, to do that? Make that first step.
Take the weight off the shoulders.
Okay, so let's talk now about your fourth wonder of the world, which is something that you would expect the next soldier to be really enthusiastic about, which is the film The Greatest Showman.
I love that film.
I like people with defiant expectations, and I was thinking, is Paul going to pick a war film? But no, it's The Greatest Showman for you. I love it. For me, I love a slab of cheese, and there's some absolute belters, some tunes in there. So tell me what The Greatest Showman does for you, Paul.
It just fills me full of hope, I think.
Yeah, just pure.
It just fills me. It's a bunch of characters. Yeah, they are characters and the fictional characters because of all. But it's people who like the songs and everything. They just nailed it. But you feel the moment and you feel the struggle and you feel that you go on that journey with them. And at the end, when and each journey and each part of it and each song, it's just like you feel part of it, and it's just and it got to the point where, do you know what, I was trying to get back into my fitness again because I had so long off, and I was probably the unfittest I'd ever been, but I just couldn't. I'd lost the eye. I mean, I've gone from winning gold medals in powerlifting to running miles in 8 minutes 10 seconds, this sort of stuff, to not being able to get off my sofa and get to the. I just didn't have that. I used to have I was known for having a fierce eye for keeping fit, and it just I was on the ball with it, and then it had just gone, literally just gone. And I couldn't get myself motivated. I couldn't get myself going. I couldn't get myself not just fit. I didn't have it in me to want to get fit. And I remember thinking, I need to find something that's going to give me that little edge, like it used to be able to get going. Because once you go and you're all right, it's just getting going. It's just the hardest thing, putting your trainers on, getting out the door. And then the Greatest Showman songs, I've got that as one of my favorites in my little Spotify thing, because you play them and you can almost you live in the moment with them again when you just listen to the songs. And I took it one step further, because then I watched on YouTube behind the scenes,
right? And
you see some of the journey that they go on to be able to belt. I mean, that. I'm going to forget the name of it now. But the one,
it was me, the main one.
I Am Me. That I Am Me, when she sat there, and she's belting out, and you see her, and she's generally full of a bag of nerves. She was when the first time she did this, and she was stood behind this little thing, holding on to Hugh, not being able to look at anybody, and you could see her growing. And if you look it up, and just look at the behind the scenes of it, and you'll see her, and she's just growing as she's singing this song. And by the end of it, she turns around. She doesn't need to look anybody in the eye. She's doing a dance move. She's just fucking belting it out there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, do you know what? That's a powerful. This video is powerful. And there's one with Hugh Jackman as well, where he had actually a thingy cancer moved from his nose. So he got told he's not allowed to sing. So when it got green lighted, they said, you're going to go on to get it green lighted. They got to go and present it to all these people. And they managed to get everyone together. And then they got everyone together. And then Hugh's like, the one thing I can tell you is, I'm here, I'm going to act the part, but I'm not allowed to sing. My doctor, I've just had this cancer thing removed from my nose. So I physically can't, I've got these many stitches in my nose. I can't sing the song. And he had me, so it's just, obviously he didn't tell them all till I got him in the room, because it's too late and they've all flown there to see. So obviously they all flown there to see him sing and get the feel for it. So anyway, so he's got this song he's singing out, and then he's miming, and then there's a moment, and you just see him like, fuck that, and he just starts singing it, and he starts belting it, and everybody else does, and you can just feel the vibe in the room, and you're just like so uplifting. You're like, it's just so powerful, and whether it's it comes from the film, but whether it's the film, whether it's the listening to the songs to relate to the film, even though you're not watching it, you still relate to it, or whether it's actually behind the scenes, it's all very powerful. If you look behind just the circus and everything else that goes with it, the message behind it is really, really, really a strong message, I think, and that's why I relate to it so much. I just think it's full of people that are can-dos.
Yeah, definitely. I can see why that is, on a personal note, I can see why that has that little bit of extra appeal, doesn't it? Because it's just about people defying the odds and, infusing to sort of, go quiet.
Back down, yeah.
Just like, I'm back up.
We're doing it.
Love it. I'd say for me, I'm a massive fan of, is it A Million Dreams?
Million Dreams, yeah.
Kills me, the song, like, love it. Okay.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I just love it. Yeah.
So sticking with music, then, your album is by Zach Brown. So I think quite a lot of people won't have heard of this guy. So he, in England,
he's a legend.
He's fairly unknown, but in America, he's big, isn't he?
He's getting big over here too. So I went to watch him in London, and it was amazing.
Okay. Right.
Best concert I've ever been to.
Really? So the album that you went for, The Foundation, is sort of country rock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you sort of discover Zach Brown?
And so I discovered Zach through a friend of mine who was in the Rifles, and he sort of had a rough time himself. And we were at one of the units. We were teaching the recruits together, and he used to love it. And he used to play a song called Free, and we used to sit there just putting the world to rights, and where everything had gone wrong over the year, and everything all the experience we got and everything, we just used to sit there and we used to listen to Free. We used to ching our glasses together, and we just used to just live that moment in that song. And it's just like, it's just, I know, again, it all sounds really cheesy probably, but it's just life in a nutshell. It's just like, we're just free. We sat there. Yeah, it's just when you listen to the words, it's not the rhythm. It's nothing like that. It's just the words and the way he sings it, and it's like genuine when he sings it as well. When you watch him live and everything else, you can see the smile in it. Like when we seen him live, it was like you could see the smile. Like you could see the happiness in his face and how much he meant the songs he was singing. It just takes you to a place where it's just like, well, actually, yeah.
So I'm not a massive fan of country music, like the music element of it. But one of the things I do like about it, and Zach Brown captures this perfectly, is the lyrics are just really simple, but I mean that in the best sense of the word to me. They're just very blunt. I'm just going to say how I feel, tell a story. From my ear, there's no attempt to overcomplicate things or be extremely poetic. It's just like somebody's just coming straight out of it, straight off the top of the head. Basically, this is where I'm at. This is how I feel. And there's a sort of simplicity about it that I do understand the appeal of that, definitely.
And because it is that, and because, like you said, because of the simplicity, because of the way it is, you can really connect to it. Yeah. And like you said, even people who don't like country, you play it like, I play that free song everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And then even people who don't like country, they get addicted to it and they click it and they end up, you hear them singing it and you're like, because it's so, and I think because it's genius, really. I think because, like I said, because the simplest people just they pick it up. You don't need to, like a lot of music. You don't even have time. You don't even know the words. You don't know what's going on. People are just bouncing whatever it is, and half the time to get the words wrong. But I think everyone just, when you listen to it, it's just something you pick up, and it's like it's telling a story, and you follow the story, and you're like, yeah, I get that.
It's funny you say the free song, because actually, like I said, I listened to the album a couple of times, but that one for me stood out straight away as the pick of the ones. Okay, moving on then. So your sixth wonder of the world. And I feel like you took liberties from me a bit here, Paul, because I asked for a book and then you came back and said an audio book.
I don't read books. I haven't read a book.
You read it, and
I haven't read a book.
You said an audio book, and then it's actually a recording of a stand-up, but it's all good. So it's Kevin Bridges, isn't it? Is the audio recording that you picked?
Yeah.
Whole different story. I hadn't sat and listened to or watched stand-up for ages, and so I really enjoyed this. It's good.
It's just light-hearted, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just funny.
It's just nice, actually. Just sometimes have a bit of a giggle in there, and just again.
And I listened to it over and over again. I literally, I could have picked. There's 4. I've got 4. I call them audiobooks because they're on my audiobook list. Yeah. I can't read. Well, I can read, but by the time because of my cognitions and everything else, it stresses me out, and I'm not very good at it, and I can't relate to it. Where an audiobook, I can't sleep. Like some people need quite peace and quiet to sleep. That sends my brain in overdrive. Then I start. It's nighttime and the quiet time is probably the worst time for me.
Yeah.
So then by putting it, I can't have a TV on because that upsets the wife, because she's got people in the morning. She can sleep in the quiet, so she's normal.
Normal person.
So and I can't. So in the end, I was like, what can I do actually? So what I can do is I can listen to an audiobook. But then what I found out is that I tried to listen to new ones I hadn't listened to, where you had to follow it and you couldn't just pick it up anywhere. And I was like, that was stressing me out then, because I'd go to bed and eventually I'd fall asleep. The medication kicks in and I fall asleep. And the next night I'm like, where the hell did I get to? I'm trying to work out where, and it becomes a really stressful task because I don't know where I am. I don't know where I started, and I've lost myself. So that was not good. So then I thought, I do like comedy a bit, and it's like hard. So then I seen I seen Carl Pilkington's first,
right.
Ricky DeVito. So I started listening to them, and then there's not many out there on the Apple where I get them from the Apple place, but there's a couple, and Kevin Bridges is one of them. And I can play it over and over and again. It doesn't matter where I finish or where I fall asleep or wherever. What, so you just pick up on the next line.
That's magic. So you're still laughing at this point then? Like
I'm probably half asleep.
In the dark.
But it just relaxes me. I get it, and it's still giggly, but you don't you know the gag now. I know the gags now. I know what's coming, but I can still focus on it enough to get me to sleep.
That's great. I feel like if you find the right comedy club, you could maybe just turn up and perform the whole routine, Paul.
Yeah, just do it. I could be a fill-in act, but yeah, I've got a couple of bounces between, but I'm always on the same ones, and that one just some of the jokes in there tickle me. Like some of them are just my sort of sense of humour, and he's quite witty, and there's a couple in there you probably can't say on here, but
he's likable, isn't he? I like that about him.
Yeah.
Some of my favourite comics actually, who I find hilarious, but you can tell they're quite troubled or possibly even unpleasant people. Whereas he's not like that, is he? It's got a warmth to it, definitely. That's good.
Yeah, and I just like him. Yeah, I think he's just good. And I know it's a bit of a cop out, but I generally don't read books.
No, that's all good. That's all good. So, we have. I feel like we've dined out on the cheese a little bit with The Greatest Showman.
A lot of cheese in my life, isn't there? A lot of cheese.
So let's finish up with going back to something really significant, and that is your last wonder of the world, which is your person. So tell us a little bit about who you've picked to talk about today, Paul.
So there's a guy I know called Billy King, and we still stay in touch today. And we still chat today now and again. He was quite high up in the army when I was quite new in the army. I think it was on my second place I was posted to, and we went to Afghan, and we were in the middle of Afghan. There's stuff I can't mention on here, but we were getting up to stuff some stuff that you really wouldn't repeat, and some stuff you probably shouldn't be doing to make things happen and get things done. To the point where we got a real big name for ourselves. People used to come to us for stuff rather than like the way you meant to do stuff, because we were getting stuff done.
Yeah.
And he just, the way he carried himself, the way he was always true to himself. He was always, but he always looked up. Like he was his command player, and he just stuck to who he was, and he was very much he was there to look after. He always had people's back. He was always one story. Can I tell you this story? Yeah, fuck it, I'm out now. We were struggling for vehicles. So we went out and I went out and stole some vehicles from the people from the British who were leaving. So everyone we were taking over from our vehicles lined up, ready to go on the ferry to go home. Obviously, all the keys lined up nice and neatly because he was going to steal them in the middle of Afghanistan on a British camp. Who's going to steal our truck? Like, you don't need to worry about theft. So I was like, I need this, and this. I found them, and I grabbed them, and I hid them all over the different places until they left. I created my own fleet of vehicles. To the point, and then I was going to get driving from A to B, and obviously the military police were out there too, doing what they do. And this particular vehicle was obviously packed to the brim to go back. So it had like a big, massive drum of oil in the passenger seat. It was only a 2-seater thing.
Are they military vehicles then?
Yeah. Literally,
how does someone in the military steal a vehicle from the military?
Because it belongs to a different unit.
Okay. Right.
So it's like Tesco stealing Asda's vehicles.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Okay. So like, we should have had all our own fleet.
Right.
And then they take their fleet back. So they stick with a unit. So like, imagine Tesco shops.
Yeah.
One Tesco shop can't go and steal a till from another Tesco shop.
Yeah.
They've got their own tills, that sort of thing. So it didn't belong to our unit. It belonged to an engineer regiment.
Yeah.
But anyway, I took a few vehicles that we needed, and this particular one, it was a HGV. It wasn't a small one. None of them were armored, but it had this massive jerry can of fuel in the passenger seat. And then I took somebody. We were going for dinner. We need to go and get food, so we went to go for it. And the guy I took with me, he kicked this jerry can over. He didn't tell me he kicked it over. And it obviously we went for dinner, come back, and there was just a lot of military police around this vehicle that was stolen.
Right.
And we're like, it's all right, it's stolen, it's not ours, we can just leave it. It doesn't matter, it's got no attaches to us. Then I realised when I felt my pocket, I was like, fuck, my ID card's in there. All my details, like my little thing that goes on my neck that has everything. My dog tags were in there, my everything was in there. I fucking panged the rights here. So I went over and said, yeah, it's my vehicle. Because what had happened, the oil drum, what he kicked over, it spilled out the side and it was just all over the floor, everywhere, just in the middle of the desert. It just made a right mess. So the police were like, well, hang on a minute. So then but then you've got like these official military documents that tell you, it's called an FMT, that lets you drive that vehicle. It proves it's yours. It's got all your details in. It's got the signature of the MTO, like the boss on it. And it's all like legitimate and it's got its mileage and that. And then when he asked to see it, obviously I couldn't produce it because it wasn't our vehicle. It's like the vehicle slipped basically. And I was like, I'll have to get you them because they're in the compound. And I couldn't believe it. I got a producer. In the middle of Afghanistan, I got a producer to produce the vehicle documents, the license, and my FMT and all this stuff I couldn't produce because it wasn't my truck.
Well, by the way, you're sort of like outraged by this, request when actually you robbed the vehicle, Paul. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, it's just well, it's because I was in the shit, and there was no way out of it. So then I went back and I told Billy, and Billy said, "Don't worry, I've got this," because he knew there's a lot more to the story, but I just can't tell it all. And then he went over and he said to him, "Look, I'm his boss, and because there's a rank structure, he's quite high, Billy." He said, "Don't worry, he's going to be filling sandbags for the rest. He's going to be on shit jobs for the rest of this tour. I've got this. I'll deal with it now. Thank you for letting me know." And obviously, that was happy that the producer got ripped over, all got squared away, and that was that. I was just chilling. But he was willing to, like, obviously because we were working under him. and he was like, it doesn't matter what it was. Or like, I got into trouble there doing that. Technically, it was I put myself in that situation.
Yeah.
But we were doing it under a little operator. But he was willing to put himself out there to go, do you know what? I'll get this squared away, which he didn't have to do. He could have just played on it. But he was always just upfront. He was honest. He always had everyone's back. But do you know what? We were doing the right thing in a difficult situation. Was it the right thing? A lot of people probably say it wasn't the right thing because you shouldn't do things you're not meant to be doing. But it really helped people.
Presumably, when you're out there, one of the things that happens is the right thing and the wrong thing becomes quite hard to keep a hold of, doesn't it? In those sort of situations when everything's sort of so complicated and up in the air.
You just try to get things done. And you just try to get this, and it just we were doing. It was the right thing to do. What we were doing, although it wasn't the legitimate way to do it, but his character, he just, you know, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. We're gonna square it away. We're gonna make a difference here. We're gonna make it happen, and we did it. And it we didn't look back, and we were like, do you know what? There's so many things you could ever talk about over a beer when you without a record button being pressed. But some of this, and we're just like, did we do that? Yeah, we did. But bloody hell, did it make a difference? Yeah, it did. But you've got to be nuts to do what we were doing.
To come full circle, Paul. That's the bit of it, I guess, that you've had to adjust to losing, because I can understand why if you have experiences with people like that, that's where that sense of loyalty and that sense of brotherhood that you talked about, that's where that comes from, isn't it? Because you've been through that stuff with those people and done those things with those people. So that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It makes sense.
Yeah, I still live everything I do. A lot of things I do, and I try. Even today, I try to live myself by the values that he set, and he showed me a lot how to carry myself, a lot of the turnout and bearing, how to just be open and honest, and a lot of the characteristics that people say I carry now, I got from Billy.
That's nice. There's something very appealing about people who have conviction in what they're doing and the ability to sort of stick two fingers up to the rule book if they need to get things done. It's a nice personality trait to have, and it's an easy one to admire, and that you watch somebody do that, especially when you're young and impressionable. Trying to find your own way in the world. To see somebody with a bit of smarts about them doing it, it leaves an impression, doesn't it? Definitely. And I can see why that was.
I think that's where I get a lot of my volunteer. Let's make a difference.
Yeah.
From back then.
Yeah, not stand around talking about it. Let's just rock on and do it.
Let's help. Let's make a difference. Yeah.
Indeed, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, mate. Genuinely, really.
Thank you for having me, man.
We've gone from it was like when we started talking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like you look like you're in the middle of nowhere now.
I am in the middle of nowhere. I'm getting ready to be racing again tomorrow.
Are you racing again tomorrow? Yeah. Good man.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock. I think the first race starts at 11, but I've still got broken ribs from the last time, so it's a bit rough.
Yeah, I like the way that earlier on you said that you were quite a cautious person sometimes. I was thinking, doesn't exactly tie in with the broken ribs and boating story that you told me earlier, but anyway.
But this is my own little. I'm safe in my own little. I'm cautious in my own little bubble. I'm surrounded by lots of military. We're just a lot of military people doing that thing.
Sounds good. If you'd like to find out more about today's guest or the Wonders of the World podcast, then you can check out our website or get involved in all the usual social media nonsense. Wonders of the World is a borderline niche production. We would just like to say thank you for listening.